Hi everyone, this is Chi.
Hey, I'm Cyrus.
How are you doing today? We're here to talk a little bit today about our comic book project, the Scarlet Scar.
Absolutely. This was a project that came over many years, and
Yes.
there were a lot of different iterations that came into being able to be the final product that it is now.
Yes,
So it was a project that you started, what, about 7 or 8 years ago?
a little longer than that.
Right.
Yeah. The project first came about actually around the time when Captain China was conceived.
Okay.
What it is, and it comes out a very unusual way too. Not the usual method that I go about developing a project. What it is when I was looking for an artist for Captain China, I put out an ad on the website, digital webbing, just to see what kind of artists I can find.
Right.
And during that time period, I found, I received about 100 different submissions for Captain China. And of course, you weed through that, you go through everything, and it was at the end, it was down to like 5, different artists that I was looking at. Of course, Jim Lai was selected for Captain China, but the other few were pretty great. And one of them in particular was, the artist I ended up using, Karsten, on the Scarlet Scar.
Right.
What it is he had a more illustrative, painted style look to his art,
Right.
which looked fantastic.
That definitely comes through in the art. You can
Yes,
see that.
yes. But something like that is harder to implement on a long-term project.
Sure.
Because there's a lot more work involved and everything. So, but I really like this art. I want to at least try to see if I can work with him a little
Sure,
bit.
yeah.
So I figure, okay, why don't I develop a one-shot project, a shorter story that can be contained a little bit better, and go from there. So also I think he was a German artist. And I figure, okay, let me try to develop something that has a European setting and feeling.
Sure,
for it,
yeah.
That kind of flavor. So I came up with the idea of a night hunting of vampires, and of course, vampire genre was pretty big at that time.
Absolutely.
A lot of
With
movies.
Twilight.
Yeah,
and
Twilight.
everything
A lot of movies was based at the time. So I figured, okay, that's a genre we can try to tap into and see how it is.
else. All right.
So that was kind of how the initial idea started, and then me and Karsten went back and forth a little bit during the development process on what the character should be.
Yes.
He even had ideas of putting it in Japan setting, but my initial thought is Japan don't really have a vampire folklore,
Right,
So it'd be a little weird to do something like that. And because we're trying to capture a more mainstream audience at the time, I said, okay, let's just put it back in Europe, European setting. He came up with the idea of the guy being a crusader,
Sure.
with the red cloak and everything, which I thought those were pretty neat little ideas and touches to the
Right, absolutely.
to the property. Yeah. So, story was written and developed, and there was actually, I think, 3 drafts written for the script.
Sure.
Because writing a short story is not as easy as writing a long-term project, because you have to condense all your ideas into a very small amount of page count,
Sure.
and be able to and get some of those ideas clearly across without leaving anything out.
So, what about this iteration of vampires that you created? How do they differentiate themselves from maybe some other ones that you'll see on the big screen
Well,
nowadays?
like you mentioned with Twilight, and that was a time when Twilight into a Vampire was getting pretty big, and one of the things they were doing was they started to move vampires into a much more romantic sense. Where vampires were glittering, glowing, and in a sense where they don't really portray them as traditional monsters anymore.
Sure.
But my feeling is like, because people haven't been developing vampires in that monster sense, I would decide to let's put it back into the sense where they are monsters again.
Sure.
They're kind of soulless beings that just wants to survive and feed off of people's blood. They were people's blood. So that was kind of the idea where I was putting that in.
Right. And then even that art of seduction that's even being shown in the first few panels
Sure.
is a way in which they're actually trying to attract humans.
Yes.
And so being aware that they are attractive to humans is one of the ways in which they're actually preying upon them, which I think is pretty interesting in and of itself.
Yeah. So that was kind of the idea behind that. Is let's make them monsters again.
Sure.
Let's make them seducers. Let's make them, prey upon the weak and those who easily falls into their lies. And that was kind of the thought behind that. And the other really interesting thing, looking back on the project, and I don't even know how this idea came about, was that I put it during the time of the Black Death,
Right.
which was kind of interesting. Which was an interesting setting of saying, okay, because there's a disease that's killing off humans, so there's less for the vampires to feed on, and they're kind of forced to come out into hiding and attack humans more directly.
Right.
So even that became a far more interesting thing that seems even relevant today to what's going on with the COVID-19 situation.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of, so after all that, when we're developing Brushpix and you're asking me to look at some of the projects I have, that we can use, all the artwork was done for that many years ago, and it was just kind of sitting there, on the computer as a bunch of files.
Correct.
That was not fully processed. There was no lettering done. I look at it, go, okay, this is something we can kind of take it out and kind of flesh it out a little better.
Sure.
And renaming it, because originally we had a different idea for the book.
Right. It was very difficult to try to figure out a name. Originally, we were calling it Red Knight, and
Yes.
that didn't really match the somber tone of the story. That portrayed more of like an action story,
Yes.
or one that was sort of more medieval and more royal, I would
Yes.
say.
Oh yeah. Well, I think the very initial like the working title I had for the script was I think Blood and Sword,
Sure.
something like that, because you figure, okay, it is a knight battling vampires, so it'll be the more action driven, but Karsten's art is really has a much more somber and more of a how do I say his stuff really comes out beautifully more in terms of background and the art.
Sure.
The setting and the lavish detail. So it didn't really shift toward an action type of genre. So that took a while, was figuring out how can we title the book properly.
And then repackaging it was the other big
Yes.
part of it too.
Yeah.
So playing around with the background, making it a little bit more edgy, and
Yes.
trying to make sure that the page came across as much older looking, almost like a scroll.
Oh, yes.
That helped set this tone and helped set the expectation. And so the before and after, in my opinion, really was quite large.
Yes. But what we end up with calling it the Scarlet Scar, I think fits it beautifully.
Absolutely.
The tone, the look, and everything. With the even the logo being kind of like a blood written hand script.
Sure.
I think really, kind of tightens up the entire packaging of the book.
Sure, absolutely. And it's just an exciting idea in general.
Sure.
To be able to see how those little changes can really make the product a lot better.
Sure.
Setting the proper expectations and the proper branding is a really big part of making sure that the
Yes.
project is successful.
Yeah.
And so that last little 5% can really make a difference, just as much as the hard work that it took to find the artist,
Oh, yes.
write the story, and make sure that it all comes together on that end.
Yeah. So yeah, we're finally able to get it together. Put it out there now for people to read.
Right.
It is developed as a one shot, but if enough people like it, perhaps we can explore the character or the world a little bit more down the line, and find more interesting stories to tell.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of opportunities with it.
Yes.
But at the beginning, we would just really appreciate it if you guys were to go to brushpix.com, take some time to be able to read through it, and if you feel like it's a good book, definitely make sure to share it with your friends on social media. Since it's all 100% free, it's very easy to be able to share.
Yes.
And we really would appreciate it, honestly, because we're a small company, but we're really trying to make large waves out there in the world. So any help would be appreciated, and that's pretty much it, really. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely take a look. Thanks, guys.
Yes. You guys have a good day too.